Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Now, I wanted to talk today about Joel from the video game series The Last of Us. And one thing in particular that I found to be unique about that character is that there's this sort of wonderful archetype. As a woman watching it, I'm not sure if other women have felt the same, but I know when I watch it, you feel a sense of admiration for Joel, because he never tried to make any sexual advances towards Ellie, and he became this sort of stepfather, a very interesting, protective, masculine stepfather who really encapsulates what a father does. And when you see how Joel carried his daughter when she hurt her leg, when everything jumps off, he's carrying her and he's putting her first. He doesn't just toss her to the side and abandon her. He goes in to the hospital, right? Brings Ellie, they're all there, finds out they're going to basically take her life in order to find a cure, or at least attempt to, and he risks his life yet again to take care of her, and he's carrying her out of the hospital, right? And it's very admirable to see such a healthy character. And in the age of adult entertainment, where stepfather, stepdaughter content on these adult websites is very widespread, and when you read crime cases and stuff like that, like true crime stories about stepfathers who did the most disturbing things to their stepsons and stepdaughters, you begin to appreciate there finally being an example in pop culture, in, not old classic movies, but something modern, where there is this good example of what it means to be a good stepdad. And since we have a rise of single mothers in America, we have over 13 million, and all over the world there's going to be war widows. There's tons of war widows every day popping up. And people can think of Joel as that sort of unicorn. The type of personality you look for in a man when it comes to who will be safe around your children. One of the biggest things a woman has in her life is making sure she picks a safe stepfather. And I think the character Joel encapsulates that perfectly, because it's fictional, but even in fiction, there's a sort of mimetic aspect. There is a catharsis, a connection, a motivation, an archetype. There's something there that you can cling to and find inspiring. And I'm not the only one who finds Joel to be an admirable character, but I think many women now can look at a character like Joel who gets the job done. He's masculine, but he's not villainous, and he's gentle, but he's not feminine. It's excellent character development, excellent writing. There's an aspect of that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey with Alexios and Phoebe, but it's a little different, because she ends up dying in the end because of Anthusa's behavior. So Alexios didn't do a good job protecting her, and he wasn't charged with protecting her. But if you look at the character Joel, he was a smuggler, and I believe Boston is where they were, and he takes on this task, and he sticks to it. And I want you to notice something about the character Joel. There's tons of red pill guys and red pill Muslims and red pill Christians who will say you get no benefit from taking care of another man's children. They say things like that's like playing someone else's saved game. Pearly Thing says single mothers have nothing to offer to a relationship. There's no bonus to being with them. So there's a lot of extreme hatred towards divorced, widowed, and single mothers, right? And they say this is how you help people to stay together in their marriage, but I digress. I don't think that horrendous amounts of cruelty for women to walk away from a situation that's making them want to delete themselves and where they're miserable, I don't see that as telling them to stay in a situation like that. I don't really see that as productive. But when you see the rise in the hatred of single mothers and there are not many solutions or counseling or abodes for them to pitch their worries to, you begin to see a lot of misery and agony. And in The Last of Us, in a strange way, you see an orphan be taken care of in a remarkable way, because Joel risks his life repeatedly, taking out clickers and bloaters and runners and the Fedra militants and rescuing her from cannibals, right? The amount of work he put in for a kid that wasn't his, with no actual sure guarantee that he was going to get anything from the Fireflies. Originally, they were going to get their weapons back when Tess and him finished the job, but that didn't happen, right? And so the amount of times where he had to go above and beyond is exemplary. And I find this fictional character in a video game to be the perfect archetype for a stepfather or a caretaker of an orphan. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And I think we need more healthy things like that, because as the atheists promote and the occultists promote really wickedness and putting the filthy ideas into stepfathers' heads, that harms society on a whole. And the amount of trauma that stepfathers do to children worldwide is so high that we need to have a serious conversation about it. And so I consider Joel to be a character that is so well written, the voice is perfect, his design is perfect, he's handsome, a remarkable hero, even though some call him the villain just because he didn't want to let Ellie be sacrificed for a cure. They call him a villain, but I see him as a hero for needy children. And little girls are very vulnerable when they're around men. And in a world like that, men become extremely dangerous. They, the cannibal, like the way he touched Ellie's hand, both in the HBO series and in the game, you can see he's thinking of something else and how scary that is for a young girl. And the innocence of young girls in this dangerous planet we call Earth is so depressing at times. Little boys face it as well. But little girls are some of the most predated upon species on this planet. The human species victimizes children excessively so. And so a mother's job is to protect her children. And if you look at how Ellie's mom died in the HBO series, she gave birth and then, got bitten, and she didn't even get to raise her baby. But as the mom is passing away, there's that anxiety, I'm sure, of how will I protect my child? Okay? And so, for any loving mother, if you are in a situation like that, You would hope that a kind man like Joel would protect your daughter. Think about it. And that's why I find him to be like the perfect stepdad. Because he's not a predator, a pervert. He is noble, has boundaries, and defends the child with his life. Unlike these red pill guys who they really say being a stepdad is a cuck. A lot of red pill Muslims say that. You'll see a lot of red pill Muslims constantly talk about child marriage, but then turn around and say if you marry a grown woman who has a child from another man, you're a cuck. So they're really adamant about marrying children, but they're disgusted by being stepfathers. And so that's why I think there should be in the future more video games, because video games are kind of like movies. I really enjoy watching them when someone does a silent walkthrough. They're not talking. Sometimes I'll enjoy someone talking. Most of the time, though, I like when they edit it as a seamless movie edit. It's pretty much the same. The Last of Us I've watched it several times and I don't get bored of it. And it's better than a lot of, like, Aquaman. I didn't think Aquaman was anything special. Like, these Marvel movies, you're just like, this is garbage. It's all junk. There's nothing really true there anymore. And in The Last of Us, there's so many ways you can analyze it and look at it to the point where each time you watch it, you see it from a different angle. And so when I watch it, I really focus on the safety that Joel provides. And as you know, I don't have a good relationship with my father, but imagine how good of a father Joel was to his actual daughter. If he's that kind to Ellie, of course, we can then infer how good a father he'd be to Sam. And so this just is even more enlightening for the fatherless generations that are growing up. Okay. And sure, you can blame all women. It's always the women who make men go away, but there's tons of men who could build a relationship with their kids once they turn 18, but choose not to. So we shouldn't forget that. There's a lot of deadbeat dads. So, young women like myself, when we see a character like Joel, I'd argue that you're like, wow, wish I had a dad like that, and if my kid became an orphan, I wish a man like that would defend her. And that's remarkable because in times of warfare, things go AWOL. You always think you might be the one to survive. You won't be the one to be taken out. But what is raw and real about that game is you see the viciousness of humans that take out other humans. When you think they would unite against the infected, really it becomes a free-for-all, utter anarchy. The government has failed. Now it's survival of the fittest. And in that scenario, a woman, knowing her fragility and trying to maintain herself, would hope that if she fails to survive and thrive, that someone will look after her child, that she won't fall into the hands of an evil person. And Joel is like that perfect man, in a way, and taking on that role and not expecting a thank you card each time, right? I never had a good stepdad. So, I didn't have a good father, I didn't have a good stepdad. So this character, to me, is like, wow, that's awesome. And this just goes to show how a well-written video game can actually make some changes. I really do think that. Because you don't hear... If Christians or Muslims start talking about how to be a good stepdad, the amount of visceral hate those people will get for even suggesting that is extreme. And quite frightening, because there are tons of good women who could be second, third, or fourth wives, and you want that child to feel safe around that man. And some women are so desperate because okay, so let me give an example. If you tell a woman, don't go get a college, don't work, and be entirely dependent on a man for finances and whatnot, you can't travel without a man, you put 100% Sharia law on these ladies. If something happens to their husband, and they don't, and their fathers, and they don't have father or brother to take them in, they have to depend upon the secular government for survival. So it's strange that Muslim women will have to depend on the secular liberal atheists for sustenance, because the Muslim men are so adamant about not being stepdads. And then rarely you see the taking care of the orphans like Ali bin Abi Talib was known to do. So even though a single parent is not an orphan, like their child isn't an orphan, they're still needy. And we're called to help the needy. But then again, I've seen a comment that was so vulgar that said, why should we help those women just because they got cream pied in? And that is such a wicked way to look at a mother in poverty. Or they'll say like, oh, F around and find out. You left your man, he left you, you couldn't keep him, now suffer with poverty. There's a lot of hatred. And so, in order to build the culture to where you help the needy woman, I think it's important for the video game companies to keep creating stories where good men who are kind to children exist. Because you have, like I said, the adult entertainment industry who's reversing that role. Incest, step-parents, step-siblings, making it very unsafe. Regardless of what liberals say. That type of content really opens up the cesspool and the abyss of the mind. And so, Joel is a character who I think can make a lot of change. Right? I find it interesting. I think more women should look at that character and ask themselves, in such a situation, would you want a red pill, smug guy? And they would probably let your kids starve. It's not my kid, it's not my problem. Like, they wouldn't care. Whereas you get somebody who has humility, mercy, grit, and is actually steadfast, you would see a different side of the male mind. And I think Joel actually helps women to be less fearful of male masculinity. Because we only see male masculinity portrayed in a pimpish, whorish way. Right? A very vapid, vain, fast life way. And Joel, I think, is a perfect example of what a perfect stepdad looks like. Because imagine the kind of stepdad he would have been in a normal situation. That would probably be even better. But then again, maybe he wouldn't have had the same impulses. So, let me know what you think. It's a very interesting conversation. I'm going to go deeper into this character, but I find him to be remarkable and a great archetype. Great archetype. I am also fundraising for a book holder and a wall thing to cover like a privacy wall, and I put that on my community tab. So if you'd like to donate $5 or something, you can do that via my blog. I think it's important to reach out to the community for help when you need it, because I can't afford it myself. So if you can, please do that. And if you stay a member of the blog, I write a lot of different stuff on there, so you can consider staying for $5 a month. That's a latte, not too bad price. So please consider doing that, and I'll see you next time.